couple hours talking about Hawaii, but we'll be jealous later. So Brent, would you send us live, please?
Yep, we're good on YouTube now. Thanks, Jason.
Absolutely. And hello, everybody. Ed, would you like to welcome the group and kick us off?
Yes. Welcome, everybody, and our visitors, our members who are in the sunny clime. Special welcome to you. I know it's really tough being here. The agenda today is we're going to have a program update. You'll see a program updates today. We'll also cover data analysis and modeling. And then next we'll do a preliminary list of design options with feedback from you all. And then after that, it'll be what's next, public comments and wrap up. But thank you so very much. Hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving Day. And I know that you're all getting ready for the next big holiday, Christmas. So I will pass it on to back to Jason. Johnell.
And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for again participating at our community advisory group. I'm going to go over slides relative to our public comment process. So as soon as we get those up, I will read them. Just a reminder that we have closed captions in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. That is https://ibr.news/captions. Next slide. You may also access our closed captions option at the bottom of your toolbar there. It's at the bottom middle of your screen. You should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, then click on the closed caption, the CC icon, and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide, please. Just a reminder that we do have ASL interpretation in the effort to continue to center equity in our program. There is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click your video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. Next slide, please. Just a reminder for our webinar participants, here are a few tips. Again, thank you for joining us. Please join audio by either phone or computer, but not both. We encourage panelists to turn on your video. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. This helps to avoid a lot of the background noise. If you experience technical difficulties, please contact our program staff at 360-329-6744. Next slide, please. And just a reminder for our public input, a few instructions. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today, roughly around 5:45. To dial in by phone, please use the following instructions. You may dial 1-669-900-6833. You'll want to include the meeting ID, which is 993-5459-6043. The passcode is 674942. You'll want to dial *9 to raise your hand. After you're invited to speak, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide, please. And to submit comment after the meeting, please fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. You may also call 360-859-0494 for Washington or 503-897-9218 for Oregon, or you may also call our 800 number at 1-888-503-6735. Please also state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory board members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. Next slide, please. And just a reminder, of course, this is not new for all of our CAG participants, but for everyone else edification. Our operating norms, we always want to put relationships first. We want to stay focused on our common goal. We want to also be mindful of the power dynamics in the room. We want to create a space for multiple truths and norms. We want to be kind and brave. We want to practice examining racially biased systems and processes, and we want to look for learning. Next slide. With that, Ed, I'm turning it back over to you.
Well, Ed, I'll jump in real quick. Ed already went through our agenda, so thank you, Ed. And we have, as we have started the last couple of months, we're going to start out with a new video from the IBR program.
Thank you very much.
I represent the Springfield, Eugene area. That's about 120 miles from the bridge. The bridge right behind me here, to put it in contrast, it's one of the major connectors between Eugene and Springfield. It's over 100 years old, and it's been repaired and fixed at least 2 or 3 times. So it's not different that you have major bridges that you spend a lot of money on. That's just the nature of having transportation system. The one over the Columbia is a little bit bigger, but it's a little more important as well. But what I'm really concerned about is its impact on freight mobility. Oregon's economy is based on export. Almost all of our products go across that bridge on their way to either Seattle or, most importantly, to the shipping channels to go overseas and other places. So that bridge safety and the ease of use is really important to Oregon industry. Our transportation committee did a tour around the state, and as we talked to people, very surprising to me, whether it was in Ontario, in the eastern side of our state, or Medford in the south, the business people consistently came up and said, you have to do something about transportation issues in that bridge in Portland. That's our lifeblood.
So Senator Beyer, thank you very, very much for that. And before I pass along to Administrator Greg Johnson for a quick program update, I wanted to update everybody on a bit of CAG membership news. Our CAG member, Kevin Perkey, who has represented Workforce Southwest Washington, has transitioned to a new role in a new part of the state. And as he was representing an organization, his successor and new CEO of Workforce Southwest Washington has joined us as a new CAG member today, Miriam Halliday. And I would invite Miriam to maybe unmute for 20 seconds, wave, and say hello to the group.
Hi, everybody. Good to see all your little boxes, your faces in the boxes this afternoon. Very excited to be here. I grew up in the area, so being a part of this group is, a long time coming. So thank you so much for having me, and excited to see what we can do together.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And now I would invite Administrator Johnson to take the virtual mic as it was for a brief program update.
Thank you, Jason. So first off, Miriam, welcome to the team, the labor of love to get this thing moved forward. So thank you for your participation. And a shout out to Senator Beyer for the great job he did in tying that this is not just a bridge that has local ramifications, that this has statewide ramifications, regional and even national ramifications as far as importance. So if we can, I think I have a couple of slides. So if we can go to the next slide. So one of the important things that we are trying to do in relationship to the recently passed infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill, is to position ourselves both qualitatively as well as time-wise for possible grant funding. So we are working through that process and seeking to get consensus to move us into the next phases that would make us, would give us the ability to be put in line for those funding programs that have come out of the new infrastructure bill. So we are looking to find match contributions at the state level that we will be able to match federal contributions, because the federal government, such as the Federal Highway Administration and federal transit authorities, are generally the last dollar in because they are competing nationally with other projects that have tremendous needs as well. So once again, we are looking at how we can pull our project together and be in line for maximizing our ability to attract federal dollars. So we think that we have some unique characteristics that make us very competitive for these grants. So we are having equity and climate at the core of our project. We know that that is those are two themes that the US DOT has said they will be focused on. So our focus on that is not only a result of our partners telling us that it's important, but also us recognizing that, you know, this is where the nation is going for mega projects. This is not the old days of just get out of our way, we will build it and we'll tell you about it later. So this is, once again, taking all of our partners into account and listening and making sure that we've heard from the communities so we can get this right and attract that funding as they are working on the guidelines that will be published, we believe, later this summer. So next slide, please. So these are, as we understand it, these are the potential discretionary grant programs that will be important for the IBR program to be able to attract federal attention. So the first one is a new program called the Competitive Bridge Investment Program. And there will be $12.5 billion with an additional 3.6 subject to future appropriations. We could be eligible up to a 50% share of our costs for the bridge itself. Now, do we think we're going to get 50%? Well, probably not, because once again, there are a lot of needs around the country. But the purpose of having this category is for the replacement, rehabilitation, preservation, or protection of bridges. So we are looking at a replacement. So we fit firmly in that category. There are other criteria that are yet to be defined, but we know that cost benefit analysis, financial commitments from the local entities is going to be tremendously important. And once again, is it consistent with the asset management plan for the owning entities of the state? And we know that we fit in perfectly with the asset management plans of both ODOT and WSDOT for this bridge. Once again, these will be annual submittals, project ratings based on criteria, and the Secretary of Transportation must recommend the project for funding in an annual report to Congress. So once again, getting in line early because if you're not funded in that first year, you will have several more bites at the apple. So we're trying to make sure we are in line early. The second program is a National Infrastructure Project Assistance Program. And this will be $5 billion over 5 years. And this is for projects of over 500 million. And there's another 5 billion that may come along based on future appropriations. So this could pay for up to 60% of a project. And once again, this is for highways and bridges, freight, intercity rail, public transportation, multimodal. So we fit into all of those categories. So we think we are well positioned again for this type of grant funding. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done by the US DOT to further define the program. But once again, looking at such issues as the state of good repair. We know that this bridge, or one of these bridges, is 104 years old. It's in good shape for a 104-year-old bridge, but still and yet it's 104 years old. Cost benefit analysis are always key. The total person or freight volume or freight supported by this bridge is tremendous, with the 2 ports being right there. And we know that this has national as well as regional and local benefits to job access and job creation. So there will be other considerations, such as, is this a multi-state, or in our case, a 2-state benefit? And it is. So we fit right in there. And we are on the radar of the US DOT for this type of grant. The third category is the Federal Transit Administration Capital Investment Grants. Once again, $8 billion with a potential of $15 billion more for future appropriations. And that can pay up to a 60% share of our cost. And this is for fixed guideway transit, which we are talking about for our program. We know whatever we build across this bridge will be in a fixed guideway. In other words, it will not allow automobile traffic in that guideway, whether it's bus rapid transit or whether it's light rail. So, and the justifications include mobility, environmental benefits, congestion relief, cost effectiveness, economic development, and land use. Local financial commitments are key to any grant from the federal government. You have to demonstrate that a region is committed to this by the dollars that they bring to the table. And how this will proceed is FTA approval at project milestones, project ratings based on different criteria, and an annual report to Congress that demonstrates that these projects are worthy. So these are the type of funds that we're trying to align ourselves and get ourselves ready to move forward with. So a lot of dollars on the table that we can potentially capture if we are ready to move this thing forward. So next slide, please.
Well, those were your slides, Greg.
Those were it.
But I do see Michael's hand up with hopefully a quick question.
All right, I'm all ears.
It is a very quick question. And it's not an easy one, I'll be honest with you. I'm just curious, as I look at these numbers, I'm thinking, oh, would we kind of fit into that bucket or that one? And I know we haven't chosen a design and all sorts of things that tell us, but it's kind of like shopping for a car. Is it even in the ballpark of what, the size, financial cost of our project? Do you have any idea?
So let me make sure I understand your question. Are you asking, do we fit specifically into one of those buckets or all of them? Is that your question?
Yes, based on the cost. I'm just trying to think when, like someone of them said projects of more than 500 million. And I was thinking, I don't know, are we there? Or are we, I have no idea. And I know that we don't know specifically, but Just curious if we know any idea of about what our project would cost.
Yeah, so we know based on work that was done on the prior study that we are in a ballpark between 3.5 billion and 4.5 billion, depending on the mode of high capacity transit, the number of auxiliary lanes. So we will definitely be qualified for any of those categories that I just spoke of.
Thank you.
So one last thing, we've had some great conversations with the other groups that are helping support this program. We've been talking to our executive steering group. We've been talking to the bi-state ledge, and those folks have looked at the design options, screening criteria, and are in alignment with us moving forward as we share them with a wider audience. And once again, we look forward to seeing the response from this group on the details, and you're going to see a very dense presentation on those design options and where this program can potentially go. So I ask you to please take a look at what's being presented, ask great questions, make comments, so we can take all of those things into account.
And I see that Bill has a question too.
Yep.
It's just a quick follow-up to Michael's question. That I'm assuming those 3 to 4 billion that you mentioned are today's dollars, not 10 years ago dollars.
Yeah, we have moved estimates to today dollars. So between 3.5 and 4.5 with the projection of year of expenditure. We know that construction is not slated to start until 2025. So all of that is taken into account, and that construction would go for a period of potentially 7 years out to 2032. So all of these things are taken into account in those numbers, and those numbers will be getting refined as we move forward, as we understand more closely what we are going to build.
Thank you, Greg. And I just want to point out that the first 2 columns represent new dollars, that when this project was initially envisioned, the team did an analysis of grant funding opportunities that might be available, and all of those remain possible with the significant introduction of these 2 programs. So thank you for that. I wanted to, before we get into the dense and captivating program that I'm not presenting, I do want to just talk a little bit to the CAG members specifically. We heard from you that you want to stay integrated, you want to stay involved, and if we need to send you stuff or send you homework in the interim, please do so. We haven't done that often, but I do want to ask all of you for a call to action, and that is, you should have received a link to the IBR survey that was unique to CAG and the Equity Advisory Group membership. We're not calling out names of who has or hasn't, but between our 2 groups, we're not quite at 50% participation. And if I may, it was so important the last time we did this, because what our members, all of us said, echoed very closely with what the general public responded. We've got about 5,500 of the general public surveys in, but again, only about half of us have responded. And so Jason, right after this meeting, is going to be sending out an email, and in it will be 2 links. One link is specifically for you to take and go to the website. The other link, many of you have said, I'm representing constituents and they have more than one opinion. What can I share with them? How? And so that second link is to forward to all of your constituents through social media, email, however you want to get it out to them. But get it out to them and encourage them to complete the survey. So there is a difference between the links. Don't send out the link that says they're a CAG member, that wouldn't be right. But there will be an email with 2 different links. And I just want to ask if each of you can, first of all, fill it out yourself if you haven't already. Many of us maybe have. But second of all, take that link and forward it to the groups that you're working with so that we make sure to capture the information that they have shared. With that, I want to introduce John Willis, who's not going to be the dense presenter, although he does have a dense graphic, but John Willis of the program team will be talking to us about the work plan. John?
Thank you, Lynn. And thanks for letting me present in front of you tonight. Our program has a very large schedule that takes us out to 2025, our current plan for construction and beyond. What I'm going to share with you is a shorter term work plan that takes us out to June and July, I guess July of next year. So if we go to the next slide, Jason. Thank you. So yeah, very dense, very dense. What you'll see here, I'll talk a little bit about where we've been. You can look on this schedule and you can see here we are right in December. If you can see all that detail, we've taken the work from the previous planning efforts and building off the record of decision that was established over a decade ago. And for the last year, we've been looking at changes in that previous record of decision and physical changes, contextual changes, and environmental changes. During that time, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed, how you all have been an important part of that. And so the CAG, if we look backwards, has been involved in the development of the desired outcomes and the screening criteria. You've had engagement on developing our equity and climate frameworks, and really importantly, feedback on our approach to how we would develop design and transit options. All of that matters because it's all feeding into this moment in time that you can see in November and December, where we look at screening options and developing a technical recommendation. So that's where we are right now. We're working on developing a technical response to all of those changes we've looked at. I won't repeat what Lynn just said, but that survey that's been out is a really important piece of information on how we're engaging the broader community and understanding how we screen the options. We basically developed a set of screening criteria and a set of desired outcomes that we want the program to achieve. And in order to evaluate all of those changes I talked about, we've developed a whole bunch of options. Our goal, where we're headed from January through June, is to take all of that work, that technical work, and advance it to present what we have been calling the draft or the IBR solution. If you want to be a little more technical about it, it'll be a draft modified locally preferred alternative. So a set of decisions about the big framework of this project and an agreement that we'll get within the broader set of partners, the 8 partners, the 2 DOTs, the 2 transit agencies, the 2 ports, and the 2 cities that are a part of developing consensus on this project. Our goal is by the spring of 2022 and into the summer, have that agreement on what that draft LPA, locally preferred alternative, is. And think of it as a framework for the program that defines the big decisions such as what's the mode of transit. We are going to take all of that work and go into a formal environmental, supplemental environmental process that will take a look at that work and the impacts associated with it. That LPA and impacts and opportunities with that. So right now, as I mentioned, in November and December, our IBR team and our agency technical staff are working together to review those design options and provide a lot of analytical information, technical evaluation, modeling, measurements, and relative comparisons of performance of all the design options that you've seen. In fact, I believe later in the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit more about the modeling and the work that goes into that. So this evaluation process will not decide what the locally preferred alternative is, but rather provide a lot of information. And it's a really necessary step in the decision point in the larger process. What we do with all that information is we're going to be talking with our agency partners in the broader community and determine, actually on just in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working with our partners to determine what the engagement with their boards and commissions looks like to take that analytical information, feedback from our listening groups, our broader community, and the work that you, the CAG, are doing. So the work that we're doing actually right now today is going to provide valuable input. I'm looking forward to the breakouts later on. That input will be used by our team as we evaluate the options, but that input will also be carried over to the partners as we look at what that consensus looks like. So as this project moves forward into the environmental and design phases beyond June and July of next year of 2022, we will still continue to involve the CAG as the program refines and evolves and goes through that process. So that's a glimpse at the work plan. I hope my conversation wasn't as dense as the slide, but I'm open to any questions you may have about where we've been and where we're headed. Okay.
Thank you, John. There will be other opportunities for questions. Yeah. So I think we just keep plowing on. So
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan will be, he's the next part of our dense presentation. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep. Hello, I'm Ryan the Prowse, Transportation Planning Lead. Thank you, John, for your introduction. So today I'll be here to talk about the kind of current existing condition data. So the next slide. So the area surrounding the interstate bridge contains a diverse transportation system, including freeways, highways, local roads, transit, and active transportation systems. Comprehensive and qualitative data provides the foundation for robust transportation analysis. This presentation will cover kind of current conditions. So if you look at the bottom bullet there, while the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic and long-term impacts are unknown at this time, the IBR program is following industry standards as well as current recommendations from WSDOT, ODOT, FHWA, and FTA to use pre-COVID-19 data. So for both current and long-term forecasts. Therefore, the IBR program is using 2019 data as their current baseline. So some of our information is about 5-year historical data, some of it's current 2019 data. So I'll explain that as we go through the slides. Next slide, please. This slide shows kind of the existing 2019 volumes in the bar chart on the right for both the I-5 bridge and the Glenn Jackson Bridge. So in 2019, there was a little over 143,000 vehicles on an average weekday that crossed the I-5 bridge, about 169,000 that crossed the Glenn Jackson Bridge. The bar chart on the left there is showing kind of what was the volumes during the previous planning during CRC, kind of showing those volumes. So in 2005 versus what in the right shows kind of 2019. Of the total growth that's kind of occurred in those last 14 years, 72% of that increase has occurred on the Glenn Jackson Bridge due to capacity constraints and congestion that's extensive on the I-5 bridge. Next slide. This bar chart is showing kind of current average weekday person trips by mode. So we want to kind of, the last one was vehicles, kind of talking about overall vehicles crossing the river, and this is showing person trips by mode. Important to note is that the interstate bridge is primarily serving vehicles, as it shows about 165,000 people are crossing in vehicles. The lack of the dedicated transit facilities limits the ability to provide effective transit service. So the transit volume is only about 3,200 on a daily basis. That's about 2% on a daily basis. Of note, though, the majority of the transit service provided today is kind of in peak periods. So during the peak period, that share would be a little higher. Also, please notice that the freight numbers there, about 16,000. I'll explain that a little bit more later when we get into a freight slide on the next slide. But also note here the limited active transportation kind of facilities across the current bridge, less than 4 feet kind of on each side, limits the ability and the volumes that are currently using the bridge today. So a little less than 500 on a daily basis. Next slide. So this chart, so we've got 2 charts here showing kind of total vehicles and freight volumes. The 2 bar charts on the left are the interstate bridge volumes, and then the 2 bar charts on the right are the Glenn Jackson Bridge. Just kind of want to show both bridges. So freight has increased to about 14,000 trips a weekday. So it's increased to about 10% of the daily number, which is up from about 8% during previous planning. Also of note on the right that the Glenn Jackson Bridge has also had an increase in freight trips to about 11,000, a little over 11,000 trips per day. It's increased from about 6.5% of the daily total, which is an increase from the 5.5%. Freight is a critical component of the users of the interstate bridge through the many industrial uses adjacent to the corridors, including both the ports of Vancouver and the Port of Portland, as well as the other industrial uses adjacent to the corridor.
And just real quickly, we have a question from Jenna.
Yes, thank you. I did want to comment on your freight volumes on the Glen Jackson versus the Interstate 5 bridge. I think it should be noted and thought about just in general terms that as the congestion has reached peak capacity on the Interstate 5 bridge, that the trucks that choose to use that route is freight traffic that's central to our region in the Portland area, the Portland, Vancouver area. So those are typically trucks that are going to access the ports or some of the manufacturing facilities in Portland and traffic like that. Trucks that are destined from Canada to Mexico are going to take 205 and miss going through that area of congestion in the Rose Quarter and on the I-5 bridge. So what we're seeing in traffic patterns has a potential to change if the congestion issue is relieved on the one hand, or it may not, and it may still be focused on those trucks that are servicing the Portland, Vancouver economic regions. So I just wanted to differentiate why those traffic volumes have grown differently. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Jana. You beat me to all my slides. I should have you present instead of me. I got a few more slides coming up on freight flows.
I apologize.
Okay.
I just didn't want us to misunderstand that the rate of growth was not as great on the interstate bridge and why.
Yeah, but the rate of growth is still high. I mean, it's still higher on the I-5 bridge. I mean, it's gone from 8% up to about 10% of the daily numbers. So good comments, good points. I'll get a little bit more into the flows here on the next few slides and hopefully help hammer that point home that you were kind of getting at. So next slide, please. So what this chart is showing is the hour-by-hour profile over a 24-hour day of the average weekday. On the left is the total volume, so it includes both freight volumes and all vehicles inclusive. And then the one on the right is kind of showing the freight profile. So the freight, medium and heavy trucks, what is their profile on a daily basis? So this is 2019 volumes showing northbound in the northbound direction. So on the left, you can see we kind of start at about 1,000 in the early morning, kind of rising up to about 3,500. Total in kind of the AM peak, continuing to increase towards the PM peak to about 5,000, and then decreasing kind of on the shoulder hours there. So that's kind of the northbound hourly profile. On the right-hand side kind of shows the freight profile. And as you can see, it's kind of peaking in the middle of the day. You've got a little over 550 kind of in the kind of peak hour. So what freight's doing is they're avoiding congestion when they can, but they're also doing their deliveries. We've had good comments from Jan and others in kind of a freight working group and some other supporting our previous planning, kind of explaining this information and supporting the details here. So freight's trying to avoid the congestion, but they also are doing their deliveries during that middle of the day. And this is an important factor to remember when I get into the hours of congestion and bottlenecks that kind of exist in the kind of corridor as well as in the region a little later on some slides coming up. Next slide, please. Next, I wanted to get into transit. So we kind of talk about some of the transit routing. So the map on the left shows kind of the existing high capacity transit. We got the yellow line from TriMet Max kind of going up Interstate Avenue. We've got the Vine BRT routes in pink there kind of that exist along 4th Plane today. And then we've got other regional and express routes as well as local bus routes kind of shown on the map on the left. And on the right-hand side, we've got a bar chart showing 2019 volumes on I-5 versus I-205 for express versus regional that cross the river. Looks like we have another question.
Yes, I had a question as to whether the transit ridership includes paratransit or are these fixed route buses?
So these are fixed route buses now that kind of cross the river. These are just cross river flows that I'm summarizing on the right. I mean, we do have kind of paratransit information summarizing, but the summary tables on the right are really just river crossing fixed route information. Perfect. So just kind of wanted to point out the kind of the routes that exist today. So we've got kind of 3 regional routes, kind of the dark blue that cross the river. 2 of them go on I-205 and 1 of them go on I-5. And then we've got 7 express routes that kind of start a little bit outside the area. Some are a little north of our map, kind of Salmon Creek area. Some start in the project area and cross the river as well. And majority of those use I-5. Some do come across I-205 in the AM southbound and then head back northbound on I-5 to take advantage of the HOV lane. So that's current kind of transit routing. Next slide. So next I wanted to get into park and rides and utilization. So we've got a summary on the left there kind of showing the existing park and ride locations with the park and ride size. The larger the circle, the larger the number of parking stalls at that location. And then in brackets there, we kind of show the current 2019 parking utilization on an average weekday, kind of within the region, kind of near the program area. And then on the right-hand side, we've got 3 park and ride lots that TriMet did some data collection for to try to look at who were the users of those 3 kind of northernmost park and ride lots just south of the river. As you can see, the 2 lots just south of the river, both Park Rose and Delta Park, the majority of the users are from Washington. It's kind of the dark blue, the lighter blue, kind of 80, 75, 70% kind of utilization of those park and rides are from Washington residents coming across the river, parking, and then jumping on light rail. Next, next slide. Next, I'm going to get into origin and destination kind of travel patterns. We've collected kind of big data or cell phone data for a 5-year period from 2016 to 2021 using a big data platform. Big data uses kind of sampleized location recordings from smartphones as well as navigation devices from connected vehicles. And then this data will be used to kind of support individual ramp-to-ramp information as well as understanding larger origin and destination travel patterns. So next slide. So what this chart is showing is we have over 2,000 transportation analysis zones in the Portland metro region. It's kind of a way they summarize land use, population, and employment information. We've kind of aggregated that to about 85 zones, as well as kind of through zones. They're the yellow box. They're kind of small to see, but on the exterior of I-5, kind of an external zones. We've kind of wanted to aggregate the data so we can summarize the information of patterns kind of by a more manageable zonal detail. Next slide. So this is a summary. Using the big data, we've kind of extracted information summarizing all day, average weekday, all users. So this includes freight and all vehicles, passenger vehicles. My next slide, it will get just specifically into freight information, but this one is all users. So I wanted to kind of summarize this for you. So this shows kind of those same 85 zones where we've kind of ranked them, kind of showing who are the top 5, next 5, 6 to 10, 10 to 15. So the kind of goes the top 20, and then we summarize the top 5 locations on the chart for you there. So the darker the color, the higher the number of users percentage that were in that kind of origin or destination. So starting at the top, so the dark colors and then lighter colors, the green zones represent starting or ending locations in Oregon, and the blue zones represent starting or ending locations in Washington. Areas that are not shaded does not mean the trips do not occur from that, but it's just lower in the scale of who's using that. So the red area is kind of our corridor area and people who are influenced by our corridor that drive across the I-5 bridge. And as you can see, the top 5 origin and destinations are kind of Beaverton Tigard area, downtown Portland, Hayden Island, Rivergate area, and then kind of west, south of downtown is kind of popping up. And then we've got, that's Oregon, I'll come just to you in a minute, Bill. And then the top 5 Washington locations are kind of north of Clark County, so kind of an external location, east of I-205, the Orchards area, which is kind of similar to that, west of I-205, and then downtown Vancouver. So those are the top 5 locations on a daily basis. You have a question, Bill?
Yep.
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed you're showing the outlying Beaverton area and those kinds of things, but you didn't show the park and rides that are out those areas as part of the park and ride slide. Are those being considered at the same time?
It's a good question. The park and ride information, we could collect that and summarize that. Right now, we've just summarized kind of the park and rides in the study area or from the travel transit market analysis. We could get that information. This is a bigger origin destination summary, so we wanted to kind of be all inclusive, but that's a good question. We can add that information.
I would say it seems to me with particularly Beaverton, Tiger, there's some in Lake Oswego area park and rides that a lot of people, 9% of the Oregon destinations are in that area as well as going the other way. So it may be good to add that in.
Yeah, that's a good summary. We can add that to the information. I mean, those park and rides could have different destinations, but that's, you know, good information to support the system. So we can add that. So Jen has a question.
I apologize if I missed this when you described this slide, but this does include freight demand on the I-5 bridge as well in that.
It does. This is all inclusive right now. The next slide will be just specific to freight. This is all vehicles and including. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So this is showing the commercial, and actually I'll go back one slide for me. Sorry, real quick. Thank you. I forgot to read the main bullet there. So nearly 2/3 of the trips using the I-5 interstate bridge have a starting or ending point within the I-5 corridor area. I want to make sure everybody gets that point before I go to the commercial information. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you. So you can see that there's a little different, there's different patterns as Jan was kind of pointing out, discussing earlier. So we've got less trips, kind of local trips. You got a little bit more through trips, and you kind of see some of the top 5 origin destinations in Oregon. The top 5 Washington origins and destinations are different than what they were just showing. So you've got the kind of through trip, and the percentage is higher. So north of Clark County in Washington is 60% of the freight trips are coming kind of from outside the area. But of note, look at which those kind of top 5 locations. The other ones are a lot of our industrial port areas that are popping up, but there are different patterns for sure kind of showing up here on who's using the bridge on a daily basis. So. Still have a question, Jana, or is that?
No, that's very helpful. I think that for carriers that frequent this area, maybe my statement was a little more applicable to them because they know how much more congested this bridge area is. And I think there are carriers who come through here and probably whatever routing system they have would put them up I-5 because that would be less distance. And then they discover the congestion problems. So
correct.
I'm not surprised to see these numbers. So
yeah, and this is the daily one as well. So I've got 2 more slides that we'll go through real fast. If we go to the next one for me. This one gets into the PM peak 4 hours. So this would get more out of what you're getting at there, Janice. Maybe during the PM peak, where when it's congested, people will avoid I-5, the kind of freight trips. But so we have this information on a daily basis for all vehicles, freight vehicles, and then we have both the PM 4 hour and the AM 4 hour to kind of support the analysis and support the design option process that Brad will be getting into a little bit more. So back to the stories, very similar to the majority of the users are within the corridor area during the peak hours. Makes sense, kind of bring you up. So we'll skip through these 2 slides so I can get to the next part of the presentation. But this information we have and it's supporting our design option and development. You can skip this one too. Thank you. So I wanted to come back to the bottlenecks. We have kind of 3 major bottlenecks kind of in the program area or influencing our project area. Northbound I-5 at the bridge lasts from about 7 hours a day from 12:30 to 7:30 p.m. Southbound I-5 at the interstate bridge extends for about 3.5 hours from 6 to 9:30 and backs up to about Main Street. The northbound bottleneck at the bridge backs up and combines with other bottlenecks south of our project area all the way down to Capitol Highway. And then we have one more bottleneck that kind of influences the kind of program area. It's southbound I-5 from kind of Marine Drive to Going Street, lasts for about 4 hours a day. So from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. we have kind of bottleneck and congestion backing up into the program area. Got on the last few slides I have here on my presentation. Next, I wanted to get into crash data. So this is kind of summarizing the crash data by type. So we've got the graphic on the left shows hour by hour, how many crashes do we have, summarized by type. And then on the right is the total for the 5-year period. So this is looking at from 2015 to 2019. Typical standard practice, look about 5 years worth of crash data. What are the total number of collisions and what are the types of those collisions. You can see about 55% are rear end collisions that are occurring over that 5-year period. Combining that with the side swipe of 19%, the fixed object of 16%, that's making up over 90% of our crashes that are occurring over a 5-year period. And then the profile there is showing kind of on the hour by hour basis, you can see how the AM peak and the PM peak are when the majority of the collisions are occurring and kind of peaking in those 2 time periods. Next slide, I got 2 more slides to go. So the last 2 slides deal with bridge lifts. We wanted to summarize kind of when the bridge lifts are occurring. So again, for a 5-year period, about how many do we have per year? So about 260 is the average. We have bridge lifts per year. Then you have kind of summarized by event type on the right-hand side, with the majority of them being vessel, but you can still see there's almost 40% of them are kind of maintenance related bridge lifts. And then the last slide I have is also bridge lift related. And this gets at back to kind of the hour by hour, when are bridge lifts occurring? So bridge lifts are not allowed between 6:30 and 9 a.m. Monday to Friday on non-holiday weekends, and 2:30 to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, again on non-holiday weekdays. Looks like Martha's got a question.
Yeah, I was wondering what kind of boats or ships. I mean, do you have that broken down by what kind of water transportation is affected there?
Let's go back a slide for me for a minute. I don't like
vessels. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, if it's a pleasure craft versus a larger vessel, I don't know if it is segregated in that level, but we do know if it's vessel versus maintenance. Right. I think we have information on which users. We probably could cross-reference that, Martha, I think, to get at that question that you've got. So I can get back to you on it if we can get it. All right, so the next slide. So the last slide here again was kind of hour by hour, showing kind of how many lifts are occurring, and on average, there's about the duration of the bridge lifts about 11.5 minutes. You got to see they're occurring right at the edge of the peak. We showed you those volumes earlier, the 24-hour volumes that are still pretty heavy on the edge of the peak. So the 11.5 minute bridge lift on average is adding to the congestion and extending that congestion right on the shoulders of the peak period. So that was my fast presentation on existing data.
Great.
Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say thank you. I do feel like we got a lot of information in a short period of time, but the slide deck was forwarded to all of us as well, so we can take a look at that at our leisure. Next up is Brad Phillips. Sorry, I was looking and I was worried because I didn't see his sign up there. But Brad is going to take us through the next set of information, which is super exciting. So hang on, and here we go.
Are you putting the slide deck back up there? Thank you. As usual, Brian delivers a lot of information in a short period of time. We give him a hard time about that. So please, all you guys also give him a hard time for speaking really fast. I'm going to do my best imitation of Brian and go through this very, very quickly. Next slide. Most of this information you've seen before. I just want to hover on things that I believe you haven't seen before. This information was presented last meeting. Again, we're thinking about this in a series of geographic areas, bridge crossing, the Vancouver area, Hayden Island and Marine Drive, and transit. So keep going. These are slightly updated slides from what you've seen last time. Again, showing the bridge crossings. The difference is we added the location of the shared use path. It's in a green color, kind of some curlicues on each side representing those ramps needed to get from the elevated bridge down to landfall on each side of the river crossing. Other than that, we're still studying the LPA curved alignment, the straight alignment, and a version of a stacked alignment of vehicles on top of vehicles. all bridges still include the transit options as well as the shared use path. Next slide. No changes here. Two different versions of the Vancouver interchange. The one on the left is the LPA that includes all of the ramp connections that are in existence today in slightly different configuration, but the movements you can make are all the similar as today. The one on the right is a slightly different configuration that is an option that goes with a stacked alignment. Whether it stays in this configuration or not, there's an option for this bridge configuration and interchange that might not include the ramps to downtown Vancouver. So northbound to downtown Vancouver, from Vancouver to southbound I-5 may not be included in a stacked option, depending on some of the options that we are looking at. Next slide. This is the North Vancouver interchanges. This is not changed from last meeting. Improvements to all the interchanges, improvements to every crossing across I-5 to improve that east-west connections between neighborhoods across the corridor. Next slide. The Hayden Island and Marine Drive, this is where we have some differences and additional information from what we provided to you last time. This slide is the same, but just go ahead and go on to the next slide. Here you're seeing more detail for each of these options. And these are representations of the options that the IBR team in conjunction with our agency partners have selected to go through a screening process. So there's a total of 5 different options that I will walk through. This slide, and if just going back to the last presentation, we said we are studying full interchange options, half or partial interchange options, and a no interchange option. And so I will walk through each of those. This slide is showing 2 different versions of a full interchange. The one on the left is what would represent the 2013 LPA and the interchange design that was included with that. The one on the right is the full interchange option that has been modified for the IBR program, including the replacement of the North Portland Harbor Bridge. If you have been following the history of the CRC and their previous planning, the layout of this is similar to what was included in the final EIS. But as I mentioned, with the replacement of North Portland Harbor Bridge, which is a difference between what was from the record of decision. So let me spend a little bit of time orienting colors. The gray going left and right through the middle is the highway configuration, trying to show each individual ramp. The green is the shared use path that is on the bottom of the corridor. The red with some circles on it is the transit alignment. The circles would be where proposed stations are. So there's the existing light rail yellow line station by Expo Center on the left. And on Hayden Island, another circle representing a station location that would be on Hayden Island. The transit is representative of either mode of light rail or bus rapid transit. The blue color is heavier use streets where interchange ramps would connect to, could be considered arterials. The more purple type streets are intended to be the local access roads where no ramps are connecting to it. So it'd be maybe more suitable for a really good active transportation corridor, but all streets that we would do would include active transportation improvements to them. Next slide. We've decided to study 2 half interchange options on Hayden Island. The one on the left is similar to the graphic that we presented last month. There's a half diamond to and from Washington that connects to Jansen Drive. And there is a west arterial bridge connecting Marine Drive at a revised interchange to Tomahawk Island Drive, which would be extended under the corridor east and west across Hayden Island. The version on the right, oh, sorry, go back. The version on the right is the same interchange configuration, the same west arterial bridge, similar transit on the west side, but it adds an arterial bridge on the east side and suggests that this shared use path is moved from the west arterial bridge to the east arterial bridge. So again, everything is pretty much the same except adding an east arterial bridge. And what that bridge does is really improves the connectivity between the North Portland neighborhoods. So Bridgeton, Hayden Island, and Kenton can circulate on local roads and over the east arterial bridge with and accessing onto Hayden Island, connecting all those communities together without the need to access onto I-5. Next slide. This is, again, similar to the graphic that was shown before, a representation of a no interchange option where all traffic accessing Hayden Island would have to go through Marine Drive to get to Hayden Island. Next slide. The transit we shared before, there are no changes in this. We just want to include them in this presentation as materials so that everybody has available to them. We'll be studying a bus on shoulder option, 3 bus rapid transit options, 4 light rail options, and the hybrid bus rapid transit and light rail option that is has a transfer facility on Hayden Island. As mentioned before, there's various termini with those transit options and alignment options. So the alignment options are either going through downtown or hugging I-5, and various termini locations, whether that is near Turtle Place or going all the way up to Kigans Bowl. So none of that information is different from what we presented last time. And there's a series of slides after this that includes graphics of all those, but I will not present those at this time unless there's specific questions about them. Did I do a good Ryan impression of quickly speaking?
Absolutely, Brad. Thank you. Thank you very much. Johnell, would you like to describe the breakout session for us? And just so everybody know, we are going to try and get you all hopefully a solid 30 minutes inside our breakout groups, so to allow you some good time to talk about some questions.
Yeah, Jason, if you'll just continue, remind folks how many groups we'll be in and kind of what we'll be discussing in each group.
Absolutely. We're going to break into 4 breakout groups, and we have some questions that are up on the screen, and you will also be able to see these questions when you're in your breakout groups with a facilitator and a note taker. So you can write them down, but they will certainly also be up on your Jamboard screen. And of course, in addition to these questions, we want to hear your feedback. This is a time to listen to you, to hear what your thoughts are on our design options and the transit options. As Brad said, the information you just saw was what you saw in November with just a few updates on the highway options. And so we know we didn't give you a lot of time to report back in November. And so this is hopefully a time we get to hear from you guys. So at 5:07, Brent, would you give us 28 minutes inside the breakout room?
Yeah, Jason, we're scheduled for 28 minutes. And just so everyone knows, I will be just kind of sharing the public comment slides and read through those also while you're in your breakout rooms. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and start those now. We good, Jason?
Yes, thank you, Brent.
All right. And looks like we're good. And let me get you to your room, Salome. For those joining via YouTube tonight, we appreciate your participation. I'm going to read the comment instructions for you as well. So to make a live comment via phone, dial 1-669-900-6833 or 1-408-638-0968. The meeting ID is 993-5459-6043 with a passcode of 674942. Once you join the meeting, you'll be put in a waiting room and I'll allow you to enter the meeting. Dial *9 to raise your hand. We will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. Dial *6 to unmute yourself, and you also may be prompted to unmute. Please provide your name and affiliation. And we have about 10 minutes allotted tonight for public comment. And depending on how many people sign up, that time will be divided equally. If we run out of time and you've not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. You can fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. Also, you can call 360-859-0494 in Washington, 503-897-9218 in Oregon, and 888-503-6735 toll free, and state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meetings in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. And I'll put up the way to join the meeting and to provide public comment and leave this up for you to read as needed, and appreciate you joining us.
Great. We'll wait till everyone's back here. Brent, if you'll just tell us when we have all of our folks back, that would be awesome.
Will do. They're coming, joining the main session again now.
Okay.
Almost.
Welcome back, everyone.
Looks like they're all here, Johnell.
Wonderful. So welcome back, everyone. We are going to do report out, and we will start with group one. And group one was Jason and Elvia. So group one, please report out.
There we go, unmuted. Hi, everybody. Thank you. We had a great conversation. Thank you to our group and Elvia for taking our notes. We kind of jumped all around. I'll go starting on the right of the screen, the green. Safety was a big concern when we talked about transit. What would impact your decision? Even why you ride currently, why would you ride in the future? And so safety was a big concern for us. And in addition to safety, we talked about the one seat ride, having not the ability to get on, and that both was convenience, time, and safety too. Is switching modes creates a different level of safety, but also staying in one mode of transportation while crossing, but also just from the start of your ride all the way to the end of your ride. Let's see. As long as it's not impacting the river users, it does not matter what option is chosen. I think that also that related to kind of the overall bridge design. Let's see. We talked about the overall design options as it relates to Hayden Island and Marine Drive, kind of the full interchange, half interchange, no interchange. And, in some cases, depending on where you were at, the option 5, which was no interchange, could actually increase drive time or travel time as it relates to employment businesses in North Hayden Meadows and Delta Park areas. The no interchange could certainly increase travel time. And so, that was something we looked at as well. We talked about what would concern you. What concerns you have on the bridge. Tolling was certainly an issue, as we talked about that. And I didn't mention this in the group, but in future meetings, we will discuss the program's introduction into tolling. So that is certainly going to be an agenda item on a future CAG meeting. The design of the bridge, we talked about freight, not just as it concerns rolling, but also the river traffic as well. Want to make sure that whatever bridge is built, that it's high enough for all vessels to get under. And again, in tolling, it was also whether a person can afford it. So we did talk about variable pricing and things like that. But again, as I said, we'll hear from the program in a future CAG meeting about tolling. We talked about quickly the seismic vulnerability and is there a pro and a con versus the overall bridge designs in terms of seismic vulnerability and what might be better and what might be not as good. And then, of course, just convenience and timing of transit was a big factor in how what would change somebody's behavior. So those are our notes.
Great. Thank you for that, Jason. And we'll go to group 2 next, which is Jake and Salome.
Yeah, and I'm the representative for the group. So our discussion was all over the spectrum. So we talked about the benefit for the people who live on Hayden Island. What do they need for these kind of like intersections? Do they need more access to I-5? Do they need less access to I-5? So we were talking who will benefit from the parallel roads to I-5 from the like direct connection between Marine Drive and Hayden Island without going to I-5. And it was kind of like people who live on Hayden Island, their answers depend on the demographic. The older people really want more transit option, and the younger people want more kind of like rapid access to the businesses and kind of like get on and off their place of work. On the second question, we were talking about bikes, and we were talking, our concern was a little bit about the grade, the steepness of the road, and how the bikers are going to feel in like winter weather. But in all options, the bikers are going on the lowest level, even if we have the several level bridge. So this sort of like is taken care of. And then we were talking about the reliability of transit. What would be beneficial? And one of the people in our group mentioned that if the transit is rapid and reliable, then people will take it more. And then another person says like there is a plus of the expensive toll. So soon it becomes more expensive to drive your car, people will start looking at the transit option and will probably take the transit more. And another, we were talking about bikes, that if there are less curves and turns, then it kind of like the straighter the road, the straighter the intersections, the more beneficial for all participants of the road. That was our input from our group.
Wonderful, excellent. And then we'll go to group 3. And this was Kayla and Bernie.
Yes, and we have Tom Hickey, who will be our volunteer report out. So go ahead and unmute, Tom.
As soon as I get unmuted, I'll start talking. So we kind of rolled questions 1 and 2 together, talking about mostly the Hayden Island Marine Drive interchanges and how that affected traffic. We seem to have identified a fairly clear consensus that all the Marine Drive residences, the Marine Drive businesses, and the through freight people all have concerns about the no interchange option. As was discussed earlier, the residents of Marine Drive do not want to lose their access to Vancouver. The freight people are concerned about access or about the increased traffic at Marine Drive if you remove the Hayden Island interchange, which will then increase congestion through that area. And the businesses are afraid of losing business if you divert the traffic and make it more complicated for people to get to Hayden Island. So as far as we can tell, that is across the entire community, support for some sort of an interchange on Hayden Island. Let's see, what else do we have there? We did feel like the maps themselves were lacking in some clarity, so that we can make real judgments about predictions about the traffic flow issues. So we are asking for further detail in terms of the maps. I would like to have a little more time to talk about the details, specific intersections. Perhaps taking these questions or these transit modes one thing at a time. I would also like to see the maps with full keys so we can understand what they're trying to tell us. There's a few ambiguities in the way the maps are drawn. We also had a general consensus that light rail through to Vancouver would be beneficial. The people in Vancouver that would like to come to have good access to Portland, and was talked about earlier in, I think, group 1 about the single seat transportation, which follows us up to the idea of the last mile. The question of how, what makes transit an attractive option isn't so much about the transit station so much as it is about, or isn't so much about the bridge design, but it's about how is the transit system integrated, the last mile between your light rail stop and the bus line to get yourself to your home. It's all got to be designed in a cohesive manner. Also concerns about safety on public transportation, which, as we know, the last few years have seen a real degradation in public safety in the Portland region. Again, not anything that bridge design affects, but it's part of an integrated project to improve the community. And that pretty much covers everything, I think.
Great, thank you for that. And we'll go to the final group. And we are going to have, I think, Sarah, you're going to give the report out.
All right, so for question 1, which of the proposed design options do you think would improve your drive time the most? We had questions about the construction, stacked option, how quickly can it be built? Would the stacked option provide quicker access? Stacked option obviously would put fewer piers in the water, so how would that affect both construction and commuters? Safety considerations, similar for vehicles across configurations, so we're not going to get a serious boost in safety depending on the design that we choose, was our understanding. And oh, this was a great one. Choosing the stacked option would actually eliminate rubbernecking or the looky-loos, right, when we have an accident. So I think that really hit home with everyone. Let's see, so for number 2, from a commuter perspective, are there concerns you have about any of these proposed design options? Let's see, commuters during construction. Is there a better design option for commuters during construction? Probably not. Probably about the same disruption for commuters no matter which option we choose. What are the opportunities of expansion long-term? Probably not a lot of opportunity for expansion either. Let's see. And then number 3, what factor would most likely change your travel behavior? Congestion time and commute time. And then also, as people have already discussed, figuring out that last mile, right? Improving the access to public transportation. We talked about safety in park and ride lots, which is a big concern. Call boxes, lighting, security, proximity, and visibility. And then overall, the public transportation options, reliability is a huge one, speed and reliability. So yeah, what are the most important considerations making transit an attractive option for users? Is that last mile, speed, reliability, ease of access, and fewer stops.
Awesome. Any additional questions or comments? Brent, just real quickly, if you can let me know if we have any folks signed up for public comment.
We do not at this time.
Okay, so I want to take an opportunity to see if any members of our committee have any quick follow-up comments or questions of any of our experts. Okay, hearing or seeing none. If we can get the slide deck back up, I will move through the rest of our slides. Thank you all for that wonderful discussion. Very, very helpful. Okay, I'm going to just go through sort of what's next. Just a update. We have a number of important meetings coming up. Our next bi-state legislative committee is on December 6th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We then have an executive steering group December 16th, which is from 10 to 12 p.m. And then our next community advisory group, believe it or not, it's already been a year. We will be coming in early with 2022 on January 6th. We have a 4 to 6 p.m. CAG meeting, and then our next equity advisory group will be January 17th, 5:30 to 7:30. There is not an EAG meeting this month as we are doing subcommittee work. Next slide, please. Future CAG meetings, community working group update wrap up. We'll have fall community engagement report. As you all know, that was indicated earlier. We have an open survey. Please do circulate that to your contacts and your communities. We want to make sure that that survey gets out as widely as possible. We'll also have an opportunity to receive an update on the equity framework. The equity advisory group, they've been working pretty hard in refining that tool, which is now starting to be implemented. And then we'll have equity and climate and design screening and a screening process update. So lots of material at our upcoming meeting. And before I continue, I see both Martha and Bill, you both have questions. So please, Martha.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was going to be a transit meeting sometime this month or in January where CTRAN and TriMet meet together. And if that would be something that we or one or more of us could attend.
I will take a stab at that by saying,
Не поняла.
Okay, our transit partners have been meeting. I don't know that there are any sort of public facing meetings, but on a regular basis, our transit partners are meeting. But let me follow up and get back with all of you. Bill?
Thank you. Just quick question. How long is the survey going to be available? Because we've been publishing it in our newsletter weekly basis. And I don't know how many weeks I want to keep it going. And I want to emphasize it in maybe the last two so we don't miss anybody who'd like to participate.
Yeah, great question, Bill. The survey is live until December 10th.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Next slide, please. So Brent, once again, any public comment?
Still no one signed up for public comment tonight.
Okay, I still want to, in case folks are reviewing and waiting for this moment, here are instructions to offer public comment. You'll want to dial 669-900-6833 or 408-638-0968. The meeting ID is 993-5459-6043. Passcode is 674-942. You'll want to dial *9 to raise your hand. I'll call on you to participate. Then you'll dial *6 to unmute yourself. If you will please provide your name and affiliation. Next slide, please. And just a reminder of how you can give us comment in writing. Fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comment to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. Again, you may call 360-859-0494 Washington or 503-897-9218 Oregon. You may also call our 800 number at 1-888-503-6735. Please state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. So I'm going to just pause for a moment to see if there are any additional public comments, seen or hearing none from Brent. Next slide. I would like to invite our co-chairs to offer any final thoughts and wrap up. Ed, Lynn, any final thoughts? Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Ed Washington, just want to thank everybody, particularly for all of the breakout sessions, all your thoughts, your ideas, and also encourage everyone who has not had the opportunity but hopes to find time to fill the survey out. But just thank you for your excellent thoughts. Learned a lot listening to you all today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Greg, any final thoughts from you?
I just like to echo Ed's thank you. This has been a intense year, and all you folks have hung in there with us. We've got some more important work to do. This spring is going to be another intense time period, not wanting to scare anybody off, but we will be making some very key decisions about this program and how it moves forward. And the CAG is an important vehicle to get the community's voice heard. So once again, thank you for your time and effort.
And just on behalf of Lisa and myself as your facilitator team, I just want to thank all of you for, again, as our chair, co-chair Washington and Greg indicated, it's been a year since we've all been together on this journey, and just cannot thank you enough for all of your dedication, time, and commitment to this effort and to this region. And wishing all of you a wonderful holiday season, and we'll see you in the new year. Happy New
You
Year.
have one question, Johnell.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes,
Just one,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Sam.
Did I apologize if I missed the announcement on Michaela, but I thought Michaela had some news for us.
Well, I will try and keep her from going bright red. You'll see it on January 6th. We'll just say that. How about that? There's wasn't quite done with some editing, but so she's so you just know she'll see that on December 6th or January 6th. And as we say goodbye, I just want to do one shout out. Often goes unmentioned. I just want to thank Jamie, who is our captioner. Does a wonderful job captioning, and I want to thank Aaron, who provides our ASL interpretation. Thank you so much for being here and for the wonderful job that you all do. And with that, I think
well, be not too fast, and want to thank Jason, our wonderful coordinator, for keeping us all on task and together. So really a wonderful group, everyone, and our community is lucky to have your leadership.
Thank you.
Happy holidays and happy New Year's.
Yeah. Wow.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you next year.
Wow.